Welcome to Poemify podcast, the poetry and art talk show, where we celebrate the beauty and diversity of African art. Our show features interviews with African artists, poets, and other creatives who draw inspiration from the rich cultural heritage of Africa. In each episode, our host engages in a lively discussion with our guests, delving into the inspiration behind their art, the cultural significance of African work, and the role of poetry and arts in promoting and preserving African culture. So, if you're a lover of arts, poetry, or African culture, tune into our podcast today and join us on this exciting journey of discovery and creativity. Once again, welcome to Poemify Podcasts.
Hi, Jachi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Dami. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All
Yeah, I
right.
can hear you.
All right. Good to have you here, Dami. Can I call you Dami or Jonathan?
You can call me Dami.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Am I audible, please?
Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
All right. Thank you very much. So, can we start? Good to have you here, Dami. I'm so delighted to have you. So on Poemify podcast, So before we jump into discussing your writing journey as a freelance writer, please can you tell us more about yourself?
Thanks for inviting me here. Thanks to Poemify publishers, to Jachi, who I know is here, and to you, the host. So, to know more about me, I would say my name is Damilola Jonathan Olajide. I am a research fellow at the University of Johannesburg. My focus is on housing finance research, but at the same time, I'm also a freelance content development strategist and a consultant. I've had quite a long history of creative writing, building a community called Itonile, and also being a published author myself, and having written a number of creative writing pieces separate from my research work. I think that summarizes information about me.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. I cut cap for you. I you shall not enroll under you. So I learn one or two things.
I think you're already learning a lot where you are.
All right. Now no wahala, because I want to, top up like content for dodo, because my favorite food is dodo. So, I just want to put it out there. So when I write it, people be like, I'm proud of this girl. Let me represent you well.
No wahala.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, the second question, did writing come naturally to you?
Well, that's a question that I would say I don't know how to respond immediately to. Because I would say writing is something that everyone who goes to any kind of learning institution would have to use at some point, whether it's at your kindergarten level or nursery or primary. Everyone that goes through any kind of education would definitely have to learn some aspect of writing or use some aspect of writing. So I'll say it's one of the tools that I was given to navigate the world that I live in, right from when I was quite young, and also the fact that my parents made it a point of duty to make every one of us write about things that we thought about when we read the scriptures. That also introduced me to thinking critically about ideologies, beliefs, questions about God, and all those things that form like your foundational thought process, your foundational ideas about the world around you. So I'd say yes, it's a bit of nurture, and I wouldn't say whether it's nature. I don't know whether anyone is born a writer, but I know that the way you are nurtured by your family and the environment you are in could be a huge influence in your your affinity for writing. But of course, some people naturally do better at it than others, maybe because of how their mind works differently from others. So there may be a bit of nature there too.
All right. Thank you so much. So, taking a detour from the writing world, what are your hobbies? What do you like doing apart from writing?
Okay, so I don't know. These questions sort of seem very, I don't know, typical. I know that these are typical questions for interviews. I would have loved maybe a little bit more difference with the questions, but in any case, I'll try to see how my responses can make them a little bit more different than the typical.
All right.
So my hobbies, writing was one of my first hobbies. I enjoyed writing just for the fun of it. Now it's more of business. But I also have a hobby, a gaming hobby. So I play games. One of the top games I play is Call of Duty. So it's one of my hobbies. Then I'd say probably music. I used to be a amateur saxophone player, and yeah, it's been a while, but that's something I know that I can do if I want to. It's just now life is so busy, there's not much time for a lot of hobbies. But that's another of my hobbies.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. All right, the next question. You've kept busy over the years as a freelance writer, and it's just beautiful how you've nurtured so many creative outlets. So my question is, why did you choose freelancing? What prompted you to start freelancing?
Okay, I think this is quite an interesting question, and I think it's something that a lot of writers or creative writers across Nigeria would eventually have to answer for themselves as well. Like I said, writing for me started as a hobby. It was just one of those things. I know Jachi would know a lot of the history around how many of us started on social media writing. In fact, Jachi and I have worked together for a while before he started Poemify. So there was a period of time where creative writing was just one of those interesting experiences for a lot of us who were still just discovering the internet and social media. It was an outlet for creative expressions. It was one of those places where you go to and then you meet a lot of interesting people, join in contests, join in duels and all kinds of interesting events that were happening as at the time. But at the same time, it's always interesting to note that many of those creatives are also everyday people like myself who are also aspiring to do something good for themselves, who are also aspiring for a better life. So for me, writing had to go beyond just something I did for fun. I started to look out for opportunities to use that skill in a productive way. I mean, I was unemployed for a while after my university degree, and I just thought to myself, this is something I enjoy doing, and I mean, I do it every day. I use my internet data to be part of all these interesting activities around writing. I do all these trainings, I do all these webinars, I join in all these trainings because I want to be a better writer. Why not just channel that skill to something profitable for myself? So I started to look at different opportunities for that, and that led me into that journey of freelancing. Of course, I also understood that the Nigerian will I say creative and the creative industry of Nigeria, the creative and entertainment industry of Nigeria is not as I'll not say developed, but it's not as connected as a lot of other systems across the globe. There's this link between creative work and industry in a lot of other economies. Like there are a lot of great copywriters like Jeff Goins, who started out as also basically just creative writers writing fiction, poetry, and other things. Many of them then branch out into agencies. So there's a kind of link or connection in some of these other countries that we don't have in Nigeria, but it's also developing anyways. It's also starting to develop and pick up. So for me, knowing that that ecosystem doesn't exist, I needed to create or find an opportunity that I could manage on my own without relying on an existing framework or an existing system. So that's where I discovered freelancing. That with freelancing, you need basically to build a business, a digital business or a digital brand that sells that skill to businesses. So I think that's what led to freelancing.
Wow, that's beautiful. I like the fact that you took the bull by the horn and you made your research and inquiries and how to go. You were being intentional, and I love it. The next question, please. How did your move to South Africa affect your writing? Is it different from how you started off when you were in Nigeria? How did it affect your writing?
Well, moving to South Africa for me was not a decision directly linked to my writing. It had very little to do with my writing.
Okay.
It was more a decision regarding another aspect of who I am, which is research part of things. As I told you at the beginning of this interview, I'm a research fellow at the University of Johannesburg, and because I've been on housing finance or affordable housing finance in Africa, so that was another part of my interests that I was pursuing, almost parallel or at the same time to me building my brand as a freelancer. So I decided I should pursue my postgraduate studies in real estate. So I pursued that and I came to South Africa. I don't think I would say it has affected my writing in any particular negative way. Of course, I made conscious decisions to pursue freelancing, right? So South Africa just gave me another environment to explore other things. Of course, now I had to venture more into research writing, and maybe that may have changed my my aspirations a little bit, because there was a time when some of my biggest aspirations were to get published on platforms like the Kalahari Reviews, to get published on Brito Paper, to get published on all of these other international publications. And I did get published on some of those. But now my aspirations are much more different from that now. Now I'm more looking at how my skills and experiences can connect with the industry where I am researching currently, which is housing. So that has changed a little bit. So now I'm not necessarily looking to get published on any literary magazine. I mean, I might still
Okay.
get published on some of them in future, but it's not like that's my major aspiration right now. So I'll say that's like one of the major ways in which it has affected things or impacted things for me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, how do you manage all this? Like a freelance writer, a consultant, a researcher. Like, how do you manage it all with your family and your business, your brand? How do you strike a balance, please?
Mm. Well, there's quite a lot of, well, I'll say a lot of intentional and conscious planning that goes into what I do. But also there's a lot of faith and being open to change. That's also part of it. So I try as much as possible to plan every part of my work, whether it's and even my life, how I want to experience family life, for example. I work with my wife to make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to how we build our home, the kind of experiences we have, the kind of friends we share our time with. But of course, when things also shift, because there are times when things just shift without you knowing. Some people come into your life without you planning it. Some business opportunities show up when you are least expecting. I am always then eager to adjust to that change. For example, me starting my research fellowship at the University of Johannesburg was a change. I used to be at the University of Pretoria for my doctorate program, and I've been there for a while. I mean, I built a strong relationship with the faculty there, with my supervisors, and for some reasons which I may not be able to discuss, I had to reach out to see where I can best fit in with my skills outside of that faculty. And interestingly, I got a number of feedbacks and eventually went with joining the University of Johannesburg. So for me, I would say it's a bit of, like I said, intentional and conscious planning, and it's also a bit of adjusting to change. Like, I run two teams: digital, which is the business arm of my writing, the freelance part. I have a virtual team that helps me with projects on an ad hoc basis. So they work with me whenever there are projects to work on. So they are not like full-time employees, but I have someone who works closely with me on a sort of full-time basis out of the team. But then Eternally also has a virtual team that I struggle to manage the teams. To be honest with you, it's not an easy venture, especially when you're running a non-profit literary magazine. For the past, half year, I have had to roll back a bit on what the deliverables are for Eternally, and that's because some of my priorities are shifting. But also I keep in mind that these are projects that are very valuable to me and also to a lot of people, because Eternally has published quite a number of authors. We still continue to receive submissions and publications from authors all over Africa. So it's not particularly easy just saying we will not serve our audience anymore. Because the audience is still there. People are still reaching out and trying to publish their works on Eternally. So managing it requires sometimes deliberate stepping back on some projects while prioritizing others. Then there's also the issue of managing my time. So now I have to work almost like 5 different arms of myself. So I almost have like 5 different arms of myself I'm working on. And for that reason, I have to really like prioritize timing. What do I want to do in this moment, in this time, for the next few months, for the next 1 year? What do I want to focus on? So I have to keep asking myself that kind of question. And once I'm able to gain clarity on that, I just pursue it, and I give minimal priority to those projects that I know that they are still more futuristic, and I might need more time to commit to them. So basically, I think those are like a few things that I do. And recently, I've even started using a calendar to manage my time. I never used to need a calendar. I was that person who could store like several events in my mind and plan different things. But these days, I just had to resort to using a calendar. So even when you told me about this interview, I had to like put it in a calendar and set reminders for myself. So I think that's a practice that I encourage for people. Another practice that I really encourage, which I share with my team, is to have like a cloud-based workspace. So usually I work with my teams using Google Drives. So if we're planning anything, working on a project, all our documents are stored in one place where everyone can access it. So it makes it easy to share information across board and collaborate on the go. There's always that problem of sharing files via emails, via WhatsApp, and then looking for this and looking for that, getting lost in the multitude of files. So I typically encourage that process. So there's so many things behind the scene that make my life quite easy, and I think some of those are the few ones.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. So you mentioned digital and Itoinle. Please, can you just tell us more about the brand for people who want to know more about the brand and what you guys do?
Okay. So digital is the business arm of my writing. So Itoinle is basically the non-profit side. It's where we do the magazine for African writers. We publish that. We used to publish it biannually. This year we've not published any, but we used to publish biannually. Digital evolved over time. I used to work alone with my clients who want to work on maybe their website, web copy, brand stories, social media campaigns, advert scripts, and all kinds of business-related marketing content. So clients would come with different parts of their sales funnel, looking for content for those parts of the sales funnel, and I would work solely with them. Over time, the volume of work increased, and I realized that I needed to work with like other writers who were in my network. So there are some handpicked folks that I've worked with over the years, and I reached out to them and told them, listen, I cannot hire you full time, but if I have these kind of projects and I need someone to work with, I want to know that I'll be able to come. And those are the kind of people that I work with on projects. I know I receive a lot of hire me requests, I want to be on your team requests, and I always tell people that's not how these things work. Writing freelance and building a freelancer business is not as easy as just hiring every writer I meet. Marketing itself and building a business is a whole lot of work, and if writers want to really be valuable assets to any team, they should come with skills that include being able to market, being able to collaborate, being able to work to expand the business. I feel like a lot of writers are missing that skill, that ability to collaborate with someone and build a brand that works. So when I see agencies like Billie Jean's marketing agency, I see a team that are made up of skilled people, but who are willing to come together to build a bigger pool. That's one major lack in our industry. We don't have a lot of writers who want to build a bigger pool with someone else. To a large extent, writers like to work solo, and it's understandable. It's part of maybe where we are coming from. we didn't initially have anyone give us, will I say, a collaborative platform. So when we start out on our own, it takes us a while to start to learn to collaborate and work with others. Now, when we do find people who are maybe doing something good, we typically don't go to them with, I want to help this person grow. Usually it's, I want to help myself grow. That's where most writers come from. I want to help myself grow, not I want to help this person grow. And that's a very destructive mindset, because when you go in a system that someone is building and all you think about is how to help yourself, it's going to reduce the impact of that business. That business is not going to grow. You're always going to be looking out like your mind is not in building that business with the person. It's more
just me, myself, and I.
Build yourself so that you can exit. So that's like one of the things that, for me, I'll say digital has helped me to achieve, to find writers who are committed to collaboratively building. So, and one of the things that I enjoy particularly about that is being able to rely on this set of people when a project is beyond my capacity to deliver, maybe within the time frame of the client or within the time frame that I required the project to be done. So I think that's basically how digital has evolved over time. I still believe that the organization is going to change and grow, but for now, that is how we operate.
All right, thank you so much. So we've known all about digital. Thank you so much. So I know how demanding the writing world can be, especially freelancing, where you're working from home, and then there are moments when you feel like you want to throw in the towel for those upcoming freelancers and all. So what keeps you going? What's your motivation? What's your drive?
Well, writing is, let me say, 20% talent and 80% discipline. Okay. And I think that's the mistake a lot of writers make. They make their talent 80%, and then 20% is for all the other skills that they need to learn. For me, I know that I have talent. That's the first thing that makes you even go into writing. It's your talent, right? So now, in order to make sure that that talent doesn't become everything, because once the writing talent becomes everything, any day you do not feel good about it or that you feel bad about it, you are most likely going to throw in the towel because it's everything. The day you don't feel good about your writing, then you will want to pack it up. But when it's just like 20% of the whole picture, and there are so many other things, projects that you're passionate about, businesses that you're passionate about, your team that you're passionate about, the courses or ideologies that you are passionate about, things that you want to see transformed in the world, then you will have so much of reasons to keep going. There's so much more to your existence than your writing. There's so much more to you than your writing, and then there's so much more reasons to keep going even when your writing is failing you. So I think that's like one of the biggest things for me, is that writing is just like 20% of who I am. There's 80% of so many other things that writing helps me to achieve. So if I'm not using writing for the fiction and poetry space, I'm using writing for business, I'm using writing for my research, I'm using writing for my marketing. So writing is weaved into all of those bigger aspects of my life. So, and that makes sure that I don't have reasons to always just throw in the towel. I'm not feeling good about writing today, I'm not interested anymore. I don't feel like that quite often. Of course, I can get tired. I'm human. I get tired. I get dried out. I get like a little bit stressed, and I go out, I do some fun stuff, play some games like I told you, hang out with family is also a bigger aspect of my life. So I cannot necessarily get so stuck into writing that it becomes everything. So I think that's like one of the key things I'll say keeps me going, is that writing is just like 20% of everything, probably even less than that.
Thank you, because I feel a lot of writers out there are struggling with this same thing you mentioned, like making writing like their entire world. If it's not writing, it's nothing else. So thank you for the advice. Okay, so another question is, what's your opinion on the future of literature and art in Africa?
The future of literature and art in Africa. Well, there's a lot happening with literature and art. There's a lot of advocacy, writing, and the role of writing in journalism and narratives. It's a growing movement. Writing is going beyond just literary contests and just publishing. Writing is finding its way into a lot of advocacy for human rights, for people of color, African identity, racial conflicts, all kinds of things, even climate change. Writing is becoming like a tool for driving many of these narratives and advocacies. So I see writing in Africa becoming a tool for advocacy, for helping people to connect and build community around things that they value or that they find important. So if you are someone who writes and you are passionate about climate change, you will most likely find communities of people who are using literature and storytelling to drive narratives that explore the different narratives around climate change. For example, you could have communities focused on maybe flooding in Africa and telling stories of victims of floods or migrants. You have a lot of refugee stories that are being told currently, which are very much connected to human rights and things like that. So there's a lot of that happening in the African literature and creative space, and I would encourage a lot of writers to key into that, to start to think of their writing beyond just I'm writing for my own self, my fun, my enjoyment. Yes, you need to enjoy what you are doing, but also find a way to lock it into some kind of advocacy. There are a lot of writers who are also keen into the LGBTQ movement and locking their writing into that space. It's some kind of advocacy. I know that it's a very controversial subject for a lot of people from Nigeria, but it is some kind of advocacy, and it has become huge in the African literary space because of the fact that advocacy, writing as an advocacy tool, is growing. People are recognizing that you can use storytelling as a means to drive narratives and to drive agendas. So, and I've always spoken about this even from when I started writing. Early when I started writing, and even created a writing course. I wrote a book called Write Art and had a 21-day writing course. And in those materials, I talk about writing as a tool for advocacy. So if you, as a writer, are looking for what will be the future, that's one of the things to look at, to see which kind of narratives are making change in economies, in global discussions, in global spaces. What are leaders, global leaders, what are they listening to? What kind of journalism are also driving the decisions that people are making, that leaders are making? So I think that's like the future.
All right. So, your books, your published books, where can your books be bought and how can they be accessed?
I've only been published once in print, and it was a collaborative book. Every other book and resource I offer is on my website, jonathanoladeji.com. and you can get them digitally. They are all ebooks, so you can read them in your email or receive them on your phone. It's all available online. And the reason why they are majorly online is because I believe in the virtual world that we are working with. That's why my team is 100% virtual. I don't think space and time should limit what you can do. You should be able to do what, if you want to learn a skill or improve your writing or learn something from me, you don't need to be in South Africa for you to learn that thing. You should be able to get access to those resources from your home. So all of my resources, all my books are all on my website, jonathanolajide.com.
All right, thank you so much. So you've heard, if you'd want to get his books, you can just go to his website, jonathanolajide.com, and they'll be in your email. All right, so I read something from your Facebook profile that made me pause and reflect. And I guess if someone is quite observant, one would actually reflect. I literally had to do a self-examination, and you said, and I quote, "I know perfectly where I am headed. The question is, how fast can I get there?" It's one thing to know what you want, and then it's another thing to be intentional on how to get there. And I think this is where most writers, wannabe freelance writers, upcoming freelance writers, are missing it. So what advice do you have for young writers and those considering freelancing? Is it all about the money, all about the fame? Is there any shorter route to success? Because some people just want it sharp and they just miss a whole lot of things in the process of wanting to be good writers. So what advice do you have?
Well, the first advice is sort of cliche, but it's true. It's that there's no shorter route. There's just none. As much as you might want to think that some people are having it easier and they're getting results faster, it's just not true. A lot of times people look at the results much more than they look at the process. My story as a freelance writer has now maybe lived up to about 7 years now.
Wow, that's a lot.
7 years. So if someone sees me now and says, yes, that's the goal, they should probably estimate 4 to 7 years also for themselves if they are just starting, of course. But social media sometimes makes it look like you can instantly make something of yourself, and that thing is a very deceptive feeling. It's a very deceptive feeling because it actually paralyzes you and makes you impatient with your process. Because you always, when you are going through a process, you always have this itch to move on to the next thing. You always have this itch to jump off and go do the next best thing, because you feel like you deserve to instantly become something. So I think the first advice is to be very realistic in your goals, very realistic in your ambition, in what you want to achieve for yourself. If getting your next income, your next salary is the easiest thing you can keep in mind, then I wouldn't fault you for it. That's why I'm not one of those writers that will say, no, don't write for money. I don't believe in such things. You can write for money and still be level-headed about what you are doing. Money is a critical resource in every organization, in every agenda, even in your family. Money is important. You cannot start a family and say you just start a family based on passion and talent. Your family is going to eat, there's going to be bills, there's going to be rent, there's going to be all kinds of things. So it's definitely not illogical to write for money. It is not. It's absolutely valid. It's a valid reason, and I think first of all, writers should get rid of that guilt that you're writing for money. There's nothing wrong with that. You can write for money. If it's to get your next pay, keep your focus on that. Make sure that you are getting your bottom line covered with your activities. Don't spend all your time doing writing banter that will not lead to you being economically empowered. If you find yourself as a writer in a space where you are not learning the skills that would allow your writing to become marketable, then you may want to change that space or improve that space. I'm not saying you should walk away from every opportunity because it's not giving you money, but you can prioritize and include in your time activities and communities that connect with the financial aspect of writing. So then you can also now talk about your bigger goals, or think about your bigger goals. What kind of person do you want to become, say in the next 2-3 years, in the next 4-5 years? What kind of person do you want to be? What do you want to be giving voice to? You can now start looking for opportunities to use your skill in a way that connects with some of those things that you see yourself doing. So if you see yourself being a reporter or a journalist, you want to take journalism courses. There are a lot of free journalism courses online. If you see yourself becoming a travel blogger, you want to start learning how travel blogging works. If you see yourself becoming a UN advocate, you want to understand what it takes to become a UN advocate. You want to also learn those things while you are using your skill, your writing skill, for the fun and for the money. You want to also know what steps you will need to take for you to get to that place you want to be. You can't continue being just a writer when your goal is to maybe be a Mandela Washington Fellow for maybe healthcare. Maybe you have a background in healthcare and you want to still pursue that. You can absolutely pursue that while still using your writing to help yourself. For example, I continue to be a freelance writer throughout my postgraduate studies, and it helped me with my expenses in South Africa. It helped me with a lot of things. In fact, I don't think I would have done as much as I have been able to do in South Africa if I was not still a writer. So writing can be a good complement to whatever you see yourself doing in life. It can be a great skill for you to build a side business, build a side gig, that kind of thing. So the advice I would give there is not to limit yourself to just writing creatively. Understand how the world around you works, the kind of industry you see yourself operating in, and see how you can still fit into that while developing your skill as a writer.
Thank you so much. And that's a wrap on today's episode. I really had an amazing time with you, Dami. It's a lightning session. It's an honor to have you here and share your views and opinion. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. So fellow writers out there, hope you've learned, hope you've heard. Be realistic with your goals. Don't be too hard on yourself. And there's no shorter routes. You just have to go with the flow, enjoy the process, and learn from the process. Thank you so much, Dami.
You're welcome.
Yes, do have a blessed day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.